Hello, Hometown Realty. I'm Deane Cheatham, and with me today is Adrian Spears. I guess he's on that side, maybe that side. We've got a great little training episode here for the Infinity training, talking about giving your buyers the edge in a market that is really crazy and a little bit of a challenge to be a buyer's agent, right, Adrian?
That's correct.
How many years have you been selling real estate?
Starting in year 19.
Unbelievable. That makes me really old. And so you've seen it all. You've sort of been there. I guess when you first started was sort of a normal market.
Yeah, normal. I would say normal to pretty hot.
Then it got hot. Then it got really cold.
Very cold.
And then it got good. And then now it's hot again, right?
That's correct.
So obviously there's different techniques that you use throughout the time to make you successful primarily. And you primarily work with buyers. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So the most important thing I think our viewers would want to hear about would be, how do we deal with it now? Okay. Maybe the market changes in 4 years. We'll get you back on here. But so now, I guess let's start at the beginning. So when you have a buyer, before you even get them out, how do you help them understand what they're getting ready to see out there in the real world of buying a home today?
I give them some of the latest stats. Tell them it's very much a seller's market. Excuse me, there. So it's a seller's market, and they're going to have to be ready and have every I dotted and T crossed to get their offer approved right now. Because one of the reasons I ask them why they're ready to move, and that's very similar to why other people are ready to move, capitalize on low interest rates and whatnot. So you have to have your ducks in a row for sure.
So the first thing you're going to want to do is really make sure that they understand the numbers of what they're dealing with, which is the market supply and demand driven, right? And so there's a low supply that you're going to show them with the statistics, and a tremendous demand. How often do they really get it when you just tell them that?
Some of them get it a little bit, but I go on to sometimes give them little anecdotal stories. A client that I worked with, they made really strong offers and lost out 3 times or something like that. Along the way, I'm constantly working on educating them to how the current market is. I don't pull any punches on that. I try to get the mindset for myself, but also share that so everybody's on the same page. I don't want to start my speech when they're in love with a house. I'm starting it way before that. So
do you try to meet them? You try to have like a coaching session before you get out and look at houses?
Absolutely. That's the ideal situation, is to meet at the office or one of our offices, wherever they're closest to looking at or wherever's convenient. Meet them there, sit down with them, go over their wants and needs. And sometimes it's tough because they start listing out things that they want, and after they tell me their price point, I quickly realize sometimes those things don't exist. They want an acre lot. So one of the things, for example, I'll say, well, do you need an acre? Are you looking for privacy? What if I found you something that's a little smaller, that backed up a common area or something like, oh yeah, that's what we want. So it's asking a bunch of questions,
So you said getting their ducks in a row. So obviously you pre-qualify them, you got to know exactly what they want, try to help them understand that. You've given them some statistics. What ducks do they need to have in a row in order for them to make sure that they're either, that gives them an edge or certainly doesn't put them behind the competition out there when they're making offers?
Well, the best thing we can do is get them with Town Bank right out of the gate. So I have the initial phone call, whether it's a referral from a past client or whatnot, and then immediately get them with your loan officer and have them fill out the actual application, pull credit, do the whole thing. That way, not only we know budget, but we know loan type and everything else, because all those little things are very important.
And I mean, that sounds sort of, that's not a secret in the business to have a pre-approved buyer, but more than ever today, I mean, you can't mess around with that. You got to have rock solid pre-qualification or pre-approval so that the buyer, the sellers know that you mean business when you make an offer.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I talk to people if they're borderline, like, for example, like an FHA putting down 3.5% or 5% conventional, I go over that with them and say, hey, it's probably worth your while to go ahead and try to push it and get that conventional loan, because that may make the difference between you getting a house today or not getting a house today. So
That's good. Anything else that, that as far as ducks in a row that they need to do before they really start the hunt?
I ask them if they've seen houses that they like. I'd obviously give them, get that information for them, and then coach them up if they do pop into an open house. If they do see a sign in the yard, to call me. Don't call the sign. Obviously, little things like that we're ready for.
Okay. So now then the fun really starts, right? Then you get out there and you try to identify some houses. So let's sort of fast forward to the point where you're looking at stuff. I guess they can't, you got to somehow let them know they can't, there's not a long time to make a decision if you see something, right?
That's correct. And sometimes there's very little out there to show them. So one of the things I've been doing lately is, if it's a maybe, let's go see it, because the maybe may turn into a yes in the right circumstances, or at least it'll give them and I one more chance to talk about things and further educate them and really find out what they're really looking for. Maybe some other options, maybe some other areas will work for them. But it gives me one more appointment with them, so when we see the right one, we're ready to go. And time is of the essence right now in this market. Time is certainly of the essence.
And you said if you go see the maybes, I've heard you say before, really buying a house is really not a process of selection, it's a process of elimination. Elaborate a little bit on that.
Right. Yeah, really, there's no such thing as the perfect house. So how they draw it up on paper, or what their wants and needs and desires are, is there's no such thing as perfect. They're not going to check every box in almost every case. So it's really what is the best house out there in their budget, and we find that, and hopefully we get it.
And two, it's also, when you go and look at some of the maybes, if the maybe doesn't work, then that helps you sort of focus them in on what will work as far as types of house, layouts, neighborhoods, areas, schools, whatever else.
Exactly. And
when work can help get them closer to one that does.
Exactly. It's never a wasted appointment. I use every opportunity not only to, build the trust between the client and I, but also really look at the house in a thorough way where they understand this house is priced well. Maybe they hate it, but then I follow up with them the next day. Guess what? The house you hated got 5 offers and whatever asking price, and that kind of helps them educate. So don't waste an appointment. If they hate the house, that's just one more element of education for them. So.
All right, so now we're to the point where it's time to start making offers, and that's really what I think a lot of people want to hear about is, so how do I, when I'm in a competitive situation in this kind of market, how do I position my buyer and my offer to stand out amongst the competition? What are you doing? Tell us some of your secrets or techniques or whatever that you're doing to be successful right now.
Well, since COVID, and it's been a trend lately, but ever since COVID, so many properties start showings on, let's say, Friday or Saturday, and they'll put an MLS that they'll look at offers Sunday or Monday, something like that. In the case where that is not explicitly in MLS, I almost never ask that. I may call the realtor with my telephone and actually talk to them with my voice instead of just texting. And I'll ask almost a throwaway question sometimes, like, what are the average utilities? What's their time frame, which was obviously important. I try to find as much about the seller as possible, because that's the real key, is hitting as many buttons for the seller. Not obviously everyone knows price, but all the other terms that we can possibly find out. So move out date, I find out if it's appropriate for a rent back agreement. A lot of listing agents don't even think about that. So be the one to put that idea in their head, or you maybe get the idea and don't tell them, but your offer has the rent back agreement in there. So little things like that. But last week, that was not an MLS. I talked to the realtor, and I didn't ask, will you take our offer? I just immediately put the best offer, better than perfect offer, on paper and sent it over with a deadline that night. And we got it done, and we kind of beat everybody out. That's a rare case these days. Normally, you're in the competition with everybody else and looking at 5 offers plus. But if you can be the only one and be the perfect offer, get it in there and let them know you mean business.
Yeah, with a motivated seller, I mean, some people they'd rather, bird in hand is worth however many in the bush.
Exactly. Yeah, cool. I make them, basically I give them the perfect offer, and have it expire somewhat reasonably, 9 o'clock that night, something like that, and have them know that they're turning down a better than perfect offer with the hope that something better is going to come along and maybe my people get mad and go away, something like that. So it doesn't work in every case. I wouldn't try that if it explicitly says that in the listing agreement, hey, we're looking at offers Sunday. Probably not a good idea to kind of force that in on a Friday. So,
but you're trying to do something really revolutionary, and that would be actually to talk to the listing agent.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I don't want to be adversarial in any way. I want to be friendly, polite, very professional. And what I want to convey to them is this is an easy transaction. I want to make this as easy as possible on the listing agent and the seller and everybody else. So I'm going to have my presentation before I make the offer. And then when my offer hits their inbox, they're also going to get a call and a text from me, probably both if I don't get to speak with them. And that pre-approval, everything, boom, 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 right at the same time. Not waiting for the pre-approval 2 hours later. Not waiting for things later. And I never say an offer's coming. I get it, I deliver it, and then I let them know it's there.
Right. So you don't want to.
I don't want to tip my hand because
with forked tongue and promise an offer that may never.
Correct. It's bad luck a little bit, but really, when other realtors are calling them and everything, oh yeah, we're getting an offer coming in. Like, I never want to say that. I already know offers are going to come in. I want to get ours in there as soon as possible. Right. So with that, you want to be the best price, the best loan possible. The people can get the most down payment, for example. If they can go FHA versus conventional, try to push them to that conventional look product for sure, because that may mean the difference between winning out or not. Then from there, one of the things that I think a lot of you guys are probably talked about or done is, maybe you don't waive the entire appraisal, but maybe you waive, some of the repairs on the appraisal under a certain threshold.
Inspection, you mean, not appraisal.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. On the inspection. And, I don't use the as is addendum. Don't use that. It sounds really powerful. It sounds really good, but it's a carte blanche out, get out of jail free card. Because if the buyer's not happy with the inspection, they can walk and get their deposit back. And for that same reason, I don't check that paragraph in the contract either. I forgot what paragraph it is, but right. I don't do that. When we look at properties, I want to make sure that we poked our head in the crawl space, looked in the attic, we crawled all over the house to make sure that the people really want the house. I don't want to sell something to somebody who doesn't want it, but at the same time, when the inspection happens, I want to at least give the seller a chance to fix any kind of repair. We'll know pretty much, unless it's just a crazy surprise, what's going on with the house.
This is a question that just popped in my head and something that might be worth saying. Do you ever talk, because I know you're on my team, but do you ever mention the fact that your deals close versus, there's some agents out there that half the deals they write fall apart, right? I mean,
yeah. I've certainly mentioned that before. Is once we get under contract, we close them up. We've done it a long time in crazy markets, and we're here and we're committed. Sometimes I tell them a little bit about the buyer, who they are, what their deal is, and a lot of times I'll get them to write one of those love letters, straight to the seller. And if you can include a video one, that's great. Certainly a family portrait, is good. A picture of them at the beach or something like that, or the little baby or the dog, whatever it is, include that to personalize it. So maybe some of the sellers out there don't care, but maybe it stings a little bit that, oh man, this perfect little family, is not going to get this house that we love so much. But I would not. Even being in the business so long, I have to remind myself it's an emotional process for buyers and sellers. When they're leaving their house, a lot of times they puff out their chest, we want top dollar. But at the end of the day, one of them may or may not say it. They want their house to go to somebody, that's going to take care of it, be a good fit for the neighborhood. They don't want to, their next door neighbors that become friends with. They want new good neighbors to be there. So
that's right. That makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like, so the human side is important to you. So you're trying to make that relationship with the agent, and you're trying to have to humanize your contract, not only with great terms and all that kind of stuff, but to humanize, because it's interesting from what I do is mostly listings. how close it usually gets. I mean, it's, when one offer is $15,000 higher than the rest, well, I don't think the love letter matters or whatever else.
No.
However, in so many cases, it's a matter of, $500 or maybe they're tied and all this stuff. The tie is definitely going to go to somebody who puts that human element in there.
And I think that's the mistake we make. Sometimes we attach the human element to our client, the buyer, for example. We get into their business so much, we forget who the seller is. And that, when it comes down to something very, very close, I've won out when we've been the lower offer several times.
Yeah.
Which shocked me.
About the cows or whatever. Tell me.
So I've got one recently, and odd situation, but we figured out that the neighbor actually bought the house to add a little bit more acreage to his very well-off neighbor. So he bought 13 acres in a house, chopped off 3 to add more buffer for his space. And I was riding in, and he's got cows out in the pasture. So there's 4 or 5 offers on the table, including us. And I just mentioned to my—
So the neighbor owns the house.
The neighbor owns the house.
He's got the acreage off, and now he's selling this house.
So I take a look at it, and I was like, he lives next door. I was like, all right, what's important to this guy? He's wealthy, he's well off. He wants to make sure he's getting good, cool, nice, cooperative new neighbors, So how can I convey that to them? And I look over there, and he's got farm equipment and cows feeding and everything else. And my clients have 2 dogs and don't need 10 acres of pasture. So I said, hey, what do y'all think about this? What if we offer the neighbor, the owner of the house and the land, up to 3 acres of pasture for lease, or hay off that pasture for 5 years for free? They're like, sure. So we wrote it up, and I know that the realtor told me we were definitely the lower offer, but at that point it didn't matter. The little bit of extra money that he would have possibly gotten, he knew that he was getting 2 good neighbors that we're there to be friendly and everything else. So each situation is different. Try not to get stuck in that rut that you've been in it forever, and I've sold houses and this, so I know how to make a good offer. It's those little things that can help sometimes.
So there's a fine line because you represent the purchaser, and so it's easy to get in and just stay in the purchaser's world.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes, is it true that when you start trying to help them understand this seller mindset, sometimes they misinterpret that as, well, are you working for me, or are you working for them?
Correct.
You ever run across that? And how do you let them know that we're trying to understand the seller and get you what you want?
Well, usually the conversation starts out with, we want this house, Adrian, we love this house, we want it. There's somebody here looking at it before us. There's somebody driving down the driveway to come look at it after us. How are we going to get it? So when I start thinking about things outside of the box, the little angles that we can use to get it, that's when they know that I'm working for them, not against them.
Right.
So
yeah, but that's a key thing. If you're listening, is to get outside of the purchaser's world and try to understand what's going to be important to the seller. And in some cases, it's just money. So I mean that's it.
Yeah.
But, when there is an opportunity, you got to seize it. So that reminds me of another good one that's just totally thinking out of the box with the orthodontist that you work with. Tell me about that one.
This one was multiple offer situation. My people were putting a great offer there on the table, but sometimes I think this was near West End. So sometimes you see crazy offers come in, or all cash and all that. So I knew we couldn't compete with that. So we had very qualified people, but at the same time, I was like, what can we do? So start brainstorming with them. What could we offer them? Kind of joking around. Next thing you know, the wife's like, well, the husband here is an orthodontist. I saw 3 kids in the house, all like elementary to young middle school. She's like, we'll do braces for all 3 of them. We'll throw that in the contract. So I added an addendum with that into the contract. So it was enough for them to get the property. So
yeah, and again, not everybody can do that. Not everybody's an orthodontist. Not everybody can put in a new driveway at their new house, or build a fence, or whatever it might be.
Right.
It's just a matter of thinking, what is going to be good for the seller? What can we do it's not gonna break our backs, yet it's gonna get us what we want in this competitive market? In 2010, you didn't need to do that. I mean, it wasn't that kind of market, but when it's a purely seller's market, you got to think like that. So obviously that what do braces actually cost?
Yeah. I mean, not a lot. It's time and energy and everything else, expertise. But yeah, it was worth it to his wife, at least, for him to do that.
Well, what did it save? What do you think it saved you got little kids. Have you thought about braces? What does it save the seller?
Yeah. I mean, it could
bucks?
be, it could be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So
yeah. That's excellent. Any other little tricks that you think of as you're doing it, or are there some things that you definitely could say you want to make sure you avoid in this kind of market?
I try to avoid appliances at all costs. If the listing says fridge conveys, sure, we're gonna put it in there if the buyer wants it. But if it doesn't list it, and the seller, when I chat with them, if they don't know it's negotiable, if they say it's negotiable, do not ask for it. They're here to buy a house, not appliances. And if they say, well, gosh, we really need a fridge is $2,000. Well, I was like, well, would you rather not get the house because of the fridge, or get the house and not, the fridge doesn't come with it? And usually they answer,
if we don't get the house, we ain't getting the fridge anyway. So.
Right. Yeah. So that's one of the little things that I think a lot of people get hung up on. Home warranty. Now, if the buyer loves warranties, they can purchase their own home warranty as it comes down the line. So that can be done before closing, after closing, anytime. Don't include that in the offer either.
Like a risk versus reward. So I mean, you add in all this stuff and you pollute the contract and distract them with all this stuff. And really what you're talking about, a couple appliances and a warranty, you're talking about $2,500.
Right.
They could get all that stuff themselves.
Yeah, and I think it's important, when I first got in the business, or see people make mistakes, you ask, do you guys want the fridge? And it's more of, hey guys, it doesn't look like the fridge is conveying. I wouldn't put it in there if I were you. And usually they agree with you. But if you say, do you want the fridge? Do you want the washer dryer? Do you want the warranty? And of course, I want all that stuff too. So you check that, but at the same time, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Right. And I can tell you on the listing side how many times people are like, look at these people. They want the swing set. They want this. They want all.
Yeah.
And it just bitters and sours. It puts a bad taste in their mouth about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the risk reward is not worth it at all.
Yeah, that's a very good point that I think everybody who's watching should really take that to heart. Let's see if there's anything else that we can think of that might be
rent back agreements. Really timing that the closing. That's important. So if somebody needs 60 or 90 days, sometimes I like to put go ahead and close. Interest rates are so good, you can get a 40-day lock on your rate. Let's go ahead and lock in, close this bad boy up, and then, hammer out a rent back agreement. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll just add that rent back agreement right in with the original offer, and they'll sign it. We've got a done deal, ready to rock and roll. So
yeah, and it just makes it easier on the seller. Might have to be some little bit of inconvenience for the buyer, but for the buyer to have to figure out what to do for 2 weeks or maybe, that's in the long run, they're going to forget about that because they're going to get the house.
Yeah, and you want to be careful too on the rent back. So if you've got someone who doesn't have a mortgage on the house, or been there a long time, the mortgage is really low. They bought the house when it's $200, now it's $600, and then you put a rent back agreement in there, paying the buyer's mortgage per month. They're like, oh my gosh, $4,000 a month. Yeah. So you got to be careful with that as well. So it's all the every little item you got to get to write the perfect offer, which is what takes it to get it done these days. That's what matters. So
I think another thing too would be just when you're doing the transaction, when you have the deals, again, you mentioned that never try to make it adversarial. No. You want to work with these agents so you build a reputation in your business of, so when they're walking down the hall and they say, I got a contract from John Doe, from Susie Q, and Adrian Spears, and man, Adrian, I mean, man, that guy is on it. He's going to get it done. That's going to close. It's going to be enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of it, I mean, maybe you're not best friends, but they're possibly trying to recruit you, and vice versa. You're trying to recruit them, over to hometown, if it's outside of hometown. Right. So yeah, it's over the years, I've learned the little quirks of certain agents. Like I know an agent who does a lot in the Ash Creek market, for example, that works for another company. He will take an offer immediately the first day, so he doesn't have to deal with it on the weekend. So it's really like learning what other realtors like. And then others, they want to sit down with the seller and go over 7 offers and cheer and, really go over it, show them you're working really hard. And this guy's the opposite. He's like, the first good one, at asking price or close, let's just take it, shut down all the showings, which is probably not doing the seller justice on things, but little things like that you learn over the years.
So maybe as a new agent or less experienced agent, if you're watching this and you have one of these situations, maybe talking to some of the more experienced agents around the office or whatever, and just saying, hey, have you ever done a deal with whoever the listing agent is, and how did that go? What
Sure.
Any advice you could give me? And then the answer may be, I no clue, but you never know. You never know. So
in this market, more than ever, it makes sense to partner with a veteran agent, be on a team, something like that, because you can't look at it as you're losing commission. You're looking at it as you either get a pending sale or you're just one of the other offers, getting left out in the dust, and then you have to make the phone call. Sorry, we lost another one. So.
I think something that as a listing agent, that sort of is a pet peeve of mine is buyer's agents that won't ever fill out the feedback form that's automatically sent through showing time. That's just going to put a bad taste. So, if you got to think about, again, you need to position yourself. If you're representing buyers, you got to position yourself as somebody they want to do business with, and by not returning phone calls and not giving the feedback, that's going to put you, it just another bad taste about your professionalism.
Absolutely. You go into every showing assuming you're going to write an offer, or if you don't write one on that one, you write on another listing. Like for example, if I go into showing time and I request a quick showing, a lot of times I'll find that realtor's cell phone number. If I don't call them, I'll text them like, hey, apologize, don't want to push things, but we just saw that one. We're showing houses tonight. Want to add yours if it's possible. That'd be great. My people are ready to roll, so you just want to set it up, so as they know when they get the call from the seller, why is this jerk want to see our house in 2 hours? He already has, this guy's awesome. He's got a buyer. They're coming from Kalamazoo. They're ready to buy, kind of thing. So every little thing like that certainly helps.
So I have a story for you. So last night we listed a house that had, I think it was 4 or 5 offers on it. Two of the agents called, spoke with us. We asked questions. They built rapport. They asked about the seller, what the seller wanted, what was the seller's hot buttons. They were very professional. All the paperwork was clean and nice and neat. When they sent the offer, they texted to make sure that we received it. They were very positive and thankful for our attention to the offers. And the other couple never talked to anybody. They didn't fill out the feedback form. Just in the inbox came I guess the subject said contract on whatever the street was, and there's no note like, hey, Deane, kiss my butt, nothing positive, negative, just a link, like just forwarded the AuthentiSign document. That's it. So how does that stack up?
Well, a couple things. So number one, you must not like paychecks, because that's not a good way to get a paycheck. But ultimately, we're real estate agents. We work on behalf of our clients. And if you think that's working on behalf of your client, I got news for you. Maybe it's scary to make a phone call, what have you, but you just got to do it. That's what we're paid for. That's what you need to do. So if it was your parents buying the house, you'd want that service for them. So you got to treat them the same way.
I think that comes back to our company motto. treat people the way you want to be treated. If you were one of those agents, just emailed it over. Do they really, can they put their head on the pillow at night and really think they're they're working for these people? Are they really agents for these people, like you said? No, they're just going through the motions.
They're just going through the motions, or they're not in control of the situation. They're so burnt out with their client or whatever else they've got going on. They just have no handle on anything, and they just send it over. Thank goodness that's gone. One more thing for me to do. And that's, as a listing agent, that's not who you want to deal with, is it?
Yeah, no, not at all. So yeah, and obviously the offer, the one we accepted, was one of the ones that had been in communication, and they had more information. They knew, they could sense what was going on, and one of them shifted their tune and got their buyers to just come up a little bit and give us some terms, which really, as far as some of the stuff on the inspection. So we actually went with an offer that was a little bit less than the highest, but the terms, really the inspection terms, were much better. So that's nice. Well, hey, I don't want to take much more of your time, Adrian. Thank you a ton for this. I've learned a lot. I'm sure anybody who's watching this has learned things. So if you have any questions, if Adrian had a question, could they call you?
Absolutely. Call me, 804-901-1022. Give me a shout, shoot me a text. Let's go grab some lunch. I think the key, the takeaway is you want to position yourself where you write an offer that you try to make it the absolute best you can. So every time when I send one out, I fully expect for it to be signed with no changes to it, no initials whatsoever, and sent back to me as ratified. But if it does need an initial, I'm ready. I'm ready. While people are ready, I can crank it up and off a sign, and it's going to be ratified soon.
That's great advice. Again, thanks for your time, Adrian. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Hometown Realty, thank you for all you do. And until next time, signing off. Adios.